Hi everyone. So in today's YouTube channel, we will be creating something that looks like this.
Does it look familiar? Yes, you guessed right. YouTube cards. The point of this video is for us to know what goes on behind the scenes, at least from a front end perspective. Let's begin.
So ideally, the first thing I did was I created a MoDataJS. So ideally, this mock data or this data is meant to be coming from the backend. So there's something they call endpoints. So this endpoints is what makes this data coming dynamically. So if you look at YouTube now, take for example, when you open your YouTube, you see the latest news, you see those, video cards come on. There are times that when you refresh, you see different stuff. So it comes in dynamically. But in my own case, I'm hard coding it, right? Because I don't have that endpoint, right? So I'm just hard coding it. So ideally in the real world, you never see someone hard coding the ID, the title of the video, the username. I mean, in the real world, you never see a front-end engineer typing, there's someone that just uploaded the video. What's his name? Can you come? Let me write his name. Ah, what's his what's the title of the what he did? Let me quickly write it. No, trust me, no, you will not see a front-end engineer doing that. So ideally, like I said previous, and this actually comes from the backend. And I named it mockdata.js. It could be anything, whatever you want to name your database data. Yeah. So the first thing is I named it as I started by writing an ID. So I want us to know something. Every user has an ID. Every user. So if I post a video, I have an ID, and that ID is a key. If your favorite YouTuber posts a video, he has an ID, and that ID is also a key. So every user has an ID. Just want us to know that behind the scenes. And so you have the title, that's the title of my video, the username, the views, all those cards that you see on YouTube normally. So those things, right? Those things on YouTube, all those uh, title, the username, all of those things are properties of the card. So they usually call it props, but you can call it properties. They are like the properties of that video card. So that video card has a title, that video card has a name, that video card has a username rather. That video card associated with that person has a username. That video card associated with that person has a title, it has an image, it has an icon, it has duration of, right? So I just wanted us to know what goes on behind the scenes. So the first thing so another thing I did was that I created components, right? Components are building blocks, right, of your application. So I created a component and I named it YouTube card. Uh, yeah, so I'm not going to explain the styling, right? I'm not going to, this is not a video for me to explain the styling, but this is what I did. So there's something they call props. There's something that call props. So props are those things that, like, the properties around the objects that are associated with that object. So if you notice in the objects, the video card or the video, yeah, so it has properties. It has property of an ID, it has a property of a title, it has a property of username, views, time, image, duration. So that YouTube card, that component I created, this component has props. That's why I wrote props here. So it has props. So when you see views, so and so person has number of views, the views, the name of the person, they are props. They're what we call props, although it's more deeper than that, but for the sake of this YouTube cards I'm doing, those things, once you open YouTube and you see username, you see the title, those things are props. Because there's no a single person that will be writing, that will be designing those things each and every time. The person just is, for us to make it easier, whoever the people that created React made it easier for us that instead of doing designing those cards individually, you can just put a props to it inside the parameter of these components that I just wrote. So like I said, I'm not going to explain the styles. So the first thing, so the another thing I did was that I used this prop to call. I started calling those properties. So you can see this image, right? The image from the data. So I did props.image. So I'm calling it from that data object, database. Props.icon, that's the username. Props.the username, props.views, props.time. So when you think of props, I want us to think of something. I want us to think of
So let's just switch in our mind that ingredient is props, and wheat, flour, sugar, and all those things, their values. So it's like saying ingredients dot wheat, ingredients dot flour, ingredients dot yeast, something like that. So it's the same thing. The way I say props dot image, props dot props dot value, and props dot username, props dot title, something very similar to that. Yeah.
so there's something they call destructuring. So instead of calling the values by saying props.image, props.username, props.title, I could as well just destructured it by writing those values directly instead of saying ingredients like in case of the bread, ingredients of wheat, ingredients of yeast, ingredients that's that kind of a thing. So I could have easily just destructured it. So this is how I destructure. Put my curly brace and I write the structured values of this component as of the bread of the component. Uh, so So I'm just writing it directly instead of doing all those processes of props dot duration and time, views. If the others I did not write, I can always write it back. Um, icon. Yeah. So let me now start. You know, removing the props since I don't need it anymore. Uh, since I don't need it anymore. So instead of saying props dot duration, I write duration directly. So you just write the values directly instead of going through the long process of writing props. They are all destructured. So the reason why username is making noise is because I forgot to write username in my destructured in the parameter. So I'm going to write username in a bit because that's the only one that's giving me error. I forgot to write username. I could just write username, give it a comma, and the error is gone. So that's about this. So I'm going to go to my app.js. By the way, this is create React app. That's how I got to those cards. So I'm going to go to app.js in my file. Uh, yeah, so this is app.js, right? This is app.js. So So I've already done the styling. So this grid is what makes it expand. That's what you see. You have a lot of rules. You have a lot of rules line by line. So that's what this grid is actually responsible for. So I'm going to do conditional rendering here. I'm going to map through the array. So this is an array. I don't think I mentioned this. This is an array. So the English might be too, might be like, what's an array? It's a list. It's just like a list of items. That's what an array is. It's just a list of items. Like you have one, two, three, four, five things you have bought. Like you have this list of things that you have bought. If you put them together, you can call them a list, or you can say like an array of bread, the list of bread I bought, an array of biscuits, the list of biscuit I bought, an array of an array of books, the number of books I bought, the list of books I bought. It's just English. It's basically the same thing. It's like saying list so as well. But in React JavaScript, we call it array. And even Java self is named array. So I'm going to do a conditional rendering, right? I'm going to do a conditional rendering here. So it's more like an if-else statement. But I'm going to be using the ternary operator. So this is how we do it. So I'll be like data. So this data is the data I named here, the array I named. So the name of this array is data, but the name of this list, if I may call it, is data. So I'm going to do a conditional rendering here. So I'm going to do data.length. So length is the like the number of things that are in this array, like the length of something, like how many things are there in layman term, that kind of a thing. So I'm just checking if there's something in this array. I'm checking if there's something inside this container. So I'll be like data.length if it's greater than 0, right? If it's greater than 0, and obviously it's actually greater than 0 because I have a lot of things in that container. I have a lot of things in my list, right? So if data.length is greater than 0, I want it to return those values, right? I want it to return those values. So I'm going to do something in a bit. Sorry, wondering, yeah, okay. So I'm going to map through the array. So I'm going to map through the list. So it's like when I mean map, it's like I'm scanning through the list. I'm checking through each of those items I bought. If I may put it that way, each of those things in my data, scanning through them, I'm mapping through them, that kind of a thing. That's what I mean. So I'm going to say data.map. I really hope this thing is making sense. I'm not saying that you know everything 100%, but I really hope it's making sense, at least to an extent. I hope I hope you are going to get something from this video, no matter how small, but at least you get to understand some certain things in this video. So what I did here is that I'm doing this list, I'm mapping through it. So this is the key index. It could be anything, but ideally this is the way we write our key. Like the ID index. This item is the value. So you can see as I hovered it, you can see the item. You can see the values here: title, username, views, and they are all string. Yeah. So I need to call the key value pair. I need to call my key. My key is the index. My key is also the ID too as well, right? So I need to call the key. Then inside this div, I'm going to put in the component. I'm going to put in the component. The name of my component is YouTube card. So in the bread case, the name of the component is bread. If I may put it that way. But in my case, my name of my component is the YouTube card. So inside the YouTube card, I'm going to be calling those values, those properties, right? I'm going to be calling them. So the first one is I can easily just do like this. So the first one is ID. By the way, it doesn't have to be accordingly. React is very, very flexible. So this value, I named it item. So it's from this item here, I'm going to be calling the properties in this list, right? So item dots. So this when I do this dot is like I'm calling something. That's what it means. item dot id, title item dot title, username now, item dot username, views item dot views, image, I'm calling image, item dot image. What's next? Icon, item dot icon. What's next? Duration, item dot duration. So that's about that. I've called all of them. ID, title, username, views. Oh, I didn't call time. I didn't call time. Like I said, it doesn't really have to be accordingly. So uh, item dot time, right? ID, title, username, views, time, image, icon, duration. So that's about it. Let me remove this. So the next thing now is I didn't do my ternary here. That's why it's making noise. So let me just write. So I'm going to explain this again, just for it to sink in more. So I did data, that's the list, data dot length. So I'm checking if the list dot length, I'm calling this length method, I should say with this list, I'm checking if it is greater than 0. If it's greater than 0, meaning that if there's something there in my container, this question mark means let it return something. So I'm saying let it return the values, let it return this map, let it return what I'm scanning, let it return the items I'm scanning. That's basically the title, let it return all of these guys. So if if peradventure there is nothing in my container, because it could happen, probably I made a mistake somewhere along my code and all of that, and there's nothing in my container, I could just put data is empty. So the backend, there might be an issue with the endpoints, given to me from the backend, and they might not, the image might not be coming up again, that kind of a thing, or maybe something happened to YouTube, and we're not seeing our videos, stuff like that. But you could just write data is empty, things like that. So that's just basically it. So if I run my code now, I should be able to see. Yeah, so that's how we have it. So that is basically how we have it. So you can see um, this basically. So if you like this video, please hit the like button. If you've not subscribed to my channel, please subscribe to my channel. If there are better methods, and obviously there are obviously better methods than the way I did it, but if you have if you know better methods, please don't be shy. You can always write it in the comment section below. Let me know your thoughts too as well concerning. Let me know your thoughts too as well concerning this. Thank you so much for watching, and I would see you in the next video. Bye bye.